Hello, guys, and welcome back to my podcast. My name is Melissa Snow, and today we're going to be talking about some spooky stories again. This is the second part of my spooky stories. It says, my old house. We're just going to jump right into these stories, and if I'm looking over, I am telling you the story when I'm reading. This one says, my old house was haunted. Taps began turning. My old house is haunted. Taps began turned on while what they mean? Do they mean like faucets? It says been turning on and fully off and tight. Bottles began moving across the counter. Top in front of us. Things violently thrown while we could see them. That was the end of that story. My house has something here. Both my spouse and I have heard and see things. Even our cats act like they heard and see things. But the presence doesn't feel threatening. I told her if it feels like a woman, she can stay as long as she doesn't bother us. And she hasn't. Yeah, so you can feel ghosts. You can sometimes see things. You can hear taps. You can hear whispers like, hey. I hear this all the time. Melissa, hey. The other day when I was with my friend, I heard at the cemetery, I heard someone say, hello, like that. And I looked over and I was like, what? There's no one standing there. We went to this graveyard and we were done because it's 100 degrees outside still, you guys, and it's the beginning of September. I can't believe it. But, yeah, when I was sitting there, I heard, hello, and then, hey, after that. And it sounded just like that. I'm not joking. I didn't see anything, but I did use a necromancer. And I use a necromancer longer than you guys see in my videos, and I just take some of it out because it's not really doing anything and it's not making any sense. But when I do the ones that make sense are on there. I don't have ghost equipment yet. I just do my podcast for now, and sometimes I go to the graveyard and use a necromancer. So anyway, this next story. I've lived in a haunted house my whole childhood and suspected mine in haunted now. Growing up in my bed would shake. I heard a pipe organ at night and there were no one across us at all. Not a chance. The neighbors were miles apart. I heard disembodied audible voices, an angry man usually now and then. The feeling of being watched in certain rooms, doors would slam and things would fall off shelves. We largely ignored it. My parents denied it happened. I ignored it or talked to whatever it was. If I was alone in my room, I felt watched and to tell it to leave me alone, please. The only thing that felt threatening was the bed shaking. Current house. Okay, do you guys hear that? Every single time I have this big noise like that, it sounds like that. I don't know if you can hear that. This one says currently lights flicker until I ask it to stop. Things move around. In the kitchen, I feel like someone walks up behind me and looks over my shoulder. It really feels like someone is there, and I have seen shadows dart in the hallway, and it feels like the person. I don't feel threatened. I just ignore it mostly. Like I said, just ignore it. If you don't like it, just ignore it. They're not going to bother you. You're not bothering them. But if they're trying to get your attention, they know you can hear and see them, and if you start talking about it, they're going to start doing it more. I said, this says, I moved into a house 20 years ago and it came with a poltergeist. Lights and TVs would turn on in the middle of the night. Clocks would set forward and backwards, etc. Any annoying as hell, but never harmful. This one says, I grew up in an old house and never had any experiences there. Things would creak the way an old house does. Was used to it. Years later, as an old adult, I moved into a house. Things started falling over seemingly on their own. I thought it was being careless without how I was setting things down. I started taking special care of how I set things down when they kept falling. Often in the middle of the night, I knew something was going on. I set a paint can down once, thinking how bad it would be if it fell over, so I made sure it wouldn't. Seconds after turning it around, I heard it hit the floor. Electronics would go off in the middle of the night. I'd hear a voice calling my name, saying hi. I touched it a couple of times. I was touched a couple of times, not it, you get what I'm saying. I've had weird dreams when I was otherwise really remembering dreaming. I decided to do the things they do in paranormal investigation shows, where someone talks to the ghost and set ground rules about what is and isn't allowed. I felt so stupid doing it, but soon as I did, everything stopped. It restarted briefly after a week. Renovation project had stopped with me doing anything. I can't explain it. Yeah, I feel stupid doing this too sometimes. So when I started doing my podcast and talking about just like spooky stories and going and doing stuff, I felt so lame. Like, why am I doing this? But now I'm having so much fun. I am not even joking. I'm having fun telling stories. I'm having fun going out and doing things and talking to random people and having just fun. And if you think you're stupid for doing something like talking to ghosts and doing all that stuff, just don't, because it's not stupid. They can hear you. The only reason why a ghost shows you themselves or does all that stuff is because they know that you can see, hear, and feel them. Because not everyone can see, hear, or feel them or talk to them. And most of the time, the ghosts don't even talk back to you, or they do talk back to you. And this says, and finally we talk our ghost. And finally, we talked to our ghost. Can you talk, Melissa? Come on. He is a previous owner of the house. He passed away a few months after we bought the house. He usually only makes his presence known when someone has complained about something in the house. Once I was hanging a new curtain, I measured the window, but not the wooden valance above it. I was saying how stupid it was to make the valance so much wider than the window. That night I woke up to seeing an old man standing just on the corner of my bedroom. I yelled to my husband to wake up, and he saw the man too and dove at him. No one was there. Now we are sure to talk positively about the house and appreciate his hard work. Yeah, ghosts don't like that. All right. And on to the next story. This says, my family has something that bothers us at night. It waits until we are at the threshold of sleep or already asleep, and then it vibrates the bed. This has happened to 5+ people in the multiple houses, the hotels across multiple states. People who have been not directly vibrate have felt the vibrations by placing their hands on the bed of this person who has just woken up. I am a scientist and was firm non-believer in the supernatural or religious ideas like ghosts. It's easy to discard until it happens to you. Until something happens to you for which there is no logical explanation. There are no ways to collect the evidence. So far, I can tell there is no way to make it stop. This has been going on about 27 years. Yeah, When it happens to you, you're never going to get over it. You're never going to not think about it. You're never going to not see it. You're never not going to hear it. When it happens, it's just like, what the heck? What just happened to me? And then you explain it to people, and then it's a weird story, and then it starts getting realer and realer and realer and realer. And then you start like freaking out over everything. And it's scary, like when you live it, you know. So on to the next story. Here we go. So this one says, my dad passed away when I was 15. On several occasions, it had seemed like his spirit has been looking out for us since. One such occurrence was when my niece was a toddler. She was upstairs in the bedroom asleep while my sister and I were downstairs watching TV. Since the TV was on, we couldn't hear my niece choking on her own vomit. She had been fine when she went to bed, and we had no idea that she had become sick so quickly. All of a sudden, a framed picture of my dad as a baby dropped where it hung on the staircase. The frames shattered all over the stairs. We ran to clean up the glass. When closer to her room, we could hear my niece in distress. It has often felt like that was my dad getting our attention that night and saved his granddaughter's life. Wow. That sometimes can happen. Not to me, but my cousin. We were very close to our grandmother, and things got a little spooky for my cousin the year after my grandma passing away. Our grandmother was allergic to kiwi. A couple of weeks after the funeral, my cousin was feeling really sad and having a general mopey day. She went to the fridge where she had a 4-pack of kiwi and took 2 and ate them. The next day, she went back to her fridge, the breakfast, and saw the package, still open, had 4 kiwis. Around the 9th anniversary of her passing, my cousin spoke out loud to our grandmother before going to work, saying that she missed her. Upon her return home, she found a birthday card that my grandma had written her, laying on the floor. The card had been safely stored inside a book on a bookshelf, and there was no pets or other people living there besides my cousin, and it was a very nice moment for her. Wow, that's nice. That's kind of creepy, but nice. I've worked in a historic house for years. The number of questions I'm asked as if it was a house is haunted. I was always able to say no until one weird day kept in my mind. I've always been respectful and remembered that this was once someone's home before. People lived and loved and died here. Anyway, one day I was closing up and locked the only entrance, and I was alone. Accidentally slammed the basement door shut after turning off the lights. It was so loud I automatically said out loud, "Oh, sorry," like an idiot. Then I heard a woman on the floor above me laughing. Again, I was completely alone, at least amused the spirits. She knew I meant no harm. I was never scared there, and I stayed respectfully and left alone. This one says, I lived in a spooky dorm my freshman year of college. It was built on the site and the Confederate Canyon line from the major Civil War battle that took place in our town. So it was bound to have some bad omens around. We had several things happen to us. For instance, my friend lived in the room next door. Nightly, their door would fly open. Oh my goodness. It did not matter if it was deadbolted. The door would fly open anyway. My friends would run into the hallway, but they would be yelling, but there was no one there. One evening, I sat along the bed watching TV. A box just shot from underneath the bed. all on its own. Nobody was around, and it was a Friday night. Everyone had gone to dinner. Perhaps the strangest one was the weekend. Things went from spooky to downright scary. My friend next door were both going out of town. I knew this, but as I sat at my desk, there was knocking coming through the wall. I thought they were still there, so I played along and knocked back a few times. Each time I was met with more knocks. When I texted them about it, they were confused. They had already left campus and no one was in the other room. Wow! That's a crazy story. Yeah, like I said, knocking, they knock. They like to knock, they like to make noise, they bang, they do all this stuff. Whatever they can get the energy from. Some ghosts don't even know what we're doing there and why, and sometimes they just don't understand, and sometimes they don't know they're dead. So, yeah. So if you're living on a Civil War battle, of course you're going to have some spooky stuff happen. It's not going to not be there. There was a lot of energy, a lot of fighting, a lot of deaths, a lot of like back and forth and everything, and trying to get attention. Like I said, if they're trying to get your attention, it's because they know. They can see you. They know you can see them. This one says, when I was 13, my family stayed at a friend's old farmhouse while traveling through the area. When I was going to bed, my mother told me someone had once passed away in the room I was sleeping in. She wished me good night. She had effed up sense of humor. After I finally fell asleep, I was awoken to feeling a hand pressing onto my forehead as if the temperature was being taken. Thanks, Mom. I felt it touch my hair when I opened my eyes. There was a shadow of a woman beside the bed leaning over me, and it was a dark room. I thought it was my mother, so I just turned to brush her away and went back to sleep. The next morning, when I asked why she came into my room so late, she told me that she hadn't, and she actually gone to bed right after me. Her mom jinxed them. Goodness gracious. This one says, one night, shortly after my good friend passed away, I was sitting on the edge of the bed. Suddenly, he was sitting right next to me. He told me he was okay and that I would be okay too. I asked him what it was like to die. I don't remember what he said or anything else. After that, I woke up the next morning normally in my bed. I wasn't tired. What happened and what was totally sober for this, he came to me and it meant everything. Oh, he just wanted to let you know he was okay. I had a similar thing happen to me after someone passed away. I went and sat on my bed and I started talking, and then I heard my name, and then I got up and freaked out and went by the door and almost went outside. It was like, this kind of freaked me out. I don't know what to do. So I messaged my sister. I was like, something just happened to me. She goes, that was definitely her. And I was like, well, yeah, okay. I don't want that right now because I'm kind of in a mess. I'm a mess right now. I'm a hot mess. I don't like that. So anyway, the next one says, little did my parents know when they purchased their 1911 dream home, their second born would be best friends with a little girl in the attic. Ever since I can remember, I've known things I shouldn't be able to, and have seen things that weren't technically there. As a young child, my parents played these things off as my imaginary friends. As time went on, I grew up. But my imaginary friends never went away. One friend in particular stayed close to me for a long time. She began peering in my doorway at the age of 3, and she aged along with me. Years after the little girl first appeared, my family and I were cleaning out the basement. Above the exposed rafters, my brother uncovered a stack of old photographs. On top of the pile of the dusty images was the imaginary best friend beside her. Her name was Jane. Jane would come into the room almost nightly. She would walk down the attic steps, stare at me through the doorway, entire room, sometimes playing with my things, but also praying at the foot of my bed. Jane would finish her nightly visit by walking down the stairs and finally the living area. When our alarm set, she would set the motion sensors off. My parents never believed me. They said it was just dust. I spent the few years sleeping with my lights on so Jane wouldn't startle me so much, and soon I agreed. I began to see her less and less at 15 and stopped seeing her altogether. Oh, she just wanted you to see her. She became more of a feeling or a voice I would hear at times, struggling a spirit I credit with saving my life more than once. After finding her photograph, it became my most prized possession. I stored it in the china cabinet in our kitchen. It wasn't the most secure location. One afternoon when I was 15 in the kitchen, had a fire, and the stack of pictures burned. In adulthood, I started stretching my psychic muscles and seeing things again, which resumed me. The whole thing was just my imagination, which reassured me that the whole thing was not my imagination. That's what it said. And it made me long for Jane, who I'd last seen 20 years ago. I began to want to know if I could prove through documentation that she was really a natural person who died in childhood. Thankfully, with my genealogical website became very proficient, and I was researching my house and the family who lived there. Then the obituary in 1918 newspaper, I found her. Jane Hill Patrick was born in July 19th, 1903, died July 24th, 1918. Forever. She died in my home. That address was listed on her obituary because her wake was held in our house. She died at 15, the same age I was when I stopped seeing her. Oh, that's sad. And when the picture burned, thankfully, through my research, I have located her brother's child, her now 90-year-old nephew, and had only ever heard stories of his aunt. However, he did have photograph. He shared with me, and the only to know remaining image of her. The face I saw was unremarkable. Was my earliest friend and my favorite spirit, Jane, anonymous. So, she spoke to the brother, and he was 90 years old. She found their family and asked them about it and told them about what she saw when she was younger, and she quit seeing the kid when she was 15. This is an interesting story. I really like that one. So this story says, I don't know if I know anyone that has gone through that. This one says, a haunting where part of my childhood experience. My sibling and I had our own individual encounters. My very first moment was when I was about 6 and my bed started to shake really bad. It happened regularly. I usually hid very still and quiet under the heavy wool blankets of my bed. This time was too much. Instead of hiding, I just started to scream as I laid there. I would scream too. That's scary. I recently seen my sister open my bedroom door and just standing there with their big eyes, mouth gaped. My mom ran in and turned the light on, and my bed felt like it dropped. My sister later said I had screamed and that there was an earthquake under my bed. From then on, it got weird. Lights and stereos would blast on, and we refused to go outside until my parents came home or the oldest sibling came back. Whenever they left, it was the 80s. We never felt able to go downstairs in the hallway without running. It felt like a being was there and watching us anonymous. All right. I think those are the end of the story. And another thing is if you feel like you want to embrace the spiritual world, do it safely and make sure you know what you're doing. Read into it, figure it out, do your own stuff. And maybe you can reach out to other people that have been through what you're going through. And this has been my podcast for today on the second part of reading the first part. And I hope everybody has a safe day, a good night, rest of your week and month. And please like, share, and subscribe. And I want everyone to have fun. And thank you for watching me. And this was my podcast. My name is Melissa Snow, and peace out, everyone.